What's up, world history studs? Out here flexing real quick for the one time. Corona trying to dampen our flex, but you know how it is out here. Big time with these chains. Got the multi watches on because I'm Mr. International. Got the shades on the inside because I don't want to let these haters see me. You know how it is. Period out here. Um, Back at it again with some more lecture slides coming live to you from the Mr. Tomei Palace. I'd give you the world tour, kind of like Drake did, but I'm not trying to one up the man right now. I'm going to let him live. So here's what we're going to do today. You're going to go through, open up the new slides that I posted in the Google Classroom. We're going to go through, keep it light. We're going to go through the first nine slides today. Actually, no, we're going to go to the first 14. I'm looking at it now. We're going to go with the first 14 slides today. We're going to go through those, okay? Be on the lookout for the questions in this video that I will be asking, okay? The answers can be found in the notes, or if you just play back the video, be on the lookout, all right? So I'm going to give you a second, open up these slides. So if you want to pause the video, you can. Make sure you have it open. We're moving on to our new unit today. The new unit is Cold War. We're going to talk about what that means. What is that Cold War? How does that look? How has that impacted our world today? Who are the main players, the main people? We're going to look at all of that, but we're going to do it over the next 2-3 weeks because it takes a big unit. We got to cover a lot. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I want you to open to slide number 1 right away. And then here we go. We're going to click from there. It should say Cold War and to slide number 2. Okay. So slide number 2 is a map. Okay. And if you look at the map, you see 2 different colors. You see kind of this minty green, and then you see kind of this pinkish salmon red. There's a reason that certain countries are part of one color and certain countries are part of the other color. You also see some countries that aren't filled in, and we'll get to that. But in the meantime, I'm going to explain why why we're looking at this map and its significance. We got to go back to World War II. Okay, it's been a while. So let me just refresh your minds. Okay, don't be distracted by the blame. 5,000, 10,000, you know how it is out here. So, going back to World War II. If we remember, World War II, Germany loses. That's it. Okay? The Allies get their land back. The French, reestablishes themselves as a country. Belgium, so on and so forth. Okay? Japan, not a factor, right? They're out of the picture. So at the end of World War II, we were kind of left with 2 real main superpowers. One was the United States, and then one was the Soviet Union. These were countries that had the most, really ultimately comes down to having the strongest militaries, but also having a large population, pretty strong economy. Now, as the war progressed in its final few months and even days, really, the landscape of Europe changed drastically by the circumstance of a few events. The most important probably event that we're going to look at of why this map looks the way it does, and you might have to zoom in, okay, is, if you remember, Berlin was the capital city of Germany that had to be captured. And there was some debate of who was going to go after it first. Was it really worth it for the United States and the British to get in first and raise their flag? They didn't think so. They didn't think the loss of life was necessary. So instead, the Soviet Union captured the capital. Because they captured the capital, they got to set up many of the local policing, local zoning rules, drawing of the boundaries, occupation of other buildings, factories, etc. As a result, Soviet Union got to reap a lot of the benefits by being the country or being the empire to capture Berlin and effectively capture Germany, the big capital city. Now, along the way, what we see here is if you look at Germany when we zoom in, Germany's split in two countries. There's a West Germany and an East Germany. We're going to get to that and explain that through this unit. But I want you to remember it ultimately kind of boils down to what happens at the end of World War II. All right. Let's go ahead and we're going to fast forward to slide number 3 now. So go to slide 3. We have the Soviet Union Eastern Bloc. Now, again, you might need to zoom on the picture. Usually I make it a little bigger in PowerPoint slides, but Google Slides doesn't allow me that much of the ability to really make the screen as big as I'd like, or the picture as big as I'd like, excuse me. This Eastern Bloc was the Soviet Union's control through an invasion or annexation of Eastern European countries. This is the point of where we'd be in class where I'd tell you, look at the big map, and I'd show you Eastern European countries. Eastern European countries were liberated by the Soviet Union and culturally have a relationship that is similar to Russian culture. Slavic people and other groups that are in Eastern Europe, such as the Polish, the Hungarians, Romanians, Bulgarians, Yugoslavians, etc., closer in relation to the Russian culture, the Soviet Union, than they would be to the British or definitely to the Americans or the Italians. So culturally, these countries that were overrun by the German oppressive Nazi regime and then liberated by the Soviet Union, a lot of ways they felt definitely supported by the Soviet Union, a feeling of owing the Soviet Union of something, and inevitably they had no ability to really push back against anything the Soviet Union told them to do. So these countries fell under control to the Soviet Union and mainly their influence as the Soviet Union marched their armies towards Germany and Berlin. Over time, the Soviet Union expanded their empire. You can see that on the map in the different shades of green as well. I've already mentioned some of the countries. And groups that weren't as willing to fall under the new Soviet regime, this new way of life that was going to be coming their way as the World War II ended, and then kind of after the fallout of World War II, they were unfortunately having to deal with Stalin, and Stalin used brutal tactics to prevent any sort of nationalist movements or anti-Soviet movements in these countries. There were definitely a lot of groups that wanted to remain completely independent, rebuild the country themselves. They didn't want any outside influence like the Soviets, the Americans, the British. The Soviets saw it as an opportunity to say, hey, we were the ones that liberated you. You know, we were the ones that saved you. We're going to help rebuild you. And unfortunately, these countries like Romania, Poland, Hungary, they had no way to step up and fight back against the Soviet Union, especially after what they had gone through in World War II. And so Soviet Union was able to form its Eastern Bloc of countries, pretty much countries that are going to be, for better or for worse, by choice or not, loyal or under kind of complete control by the Soviet Union. This leads us to slide 4. This was a term created by Winston Churchill, the Iron Curtain, to describe the United Soviet Socialist Republic influence, the USSR, Soviet Union, its influence over these Eastern Bloc countries. The Iron Curtain. Big vocabulary term. I'll probably ask you on the test. Okay. So let's now go back to slide 2. Take a look at the map. If you look at the images that you saw on slide 4 and you look at the images on slide 2, you'll notice that there all of a sudden seems to be kind of this similar imaging that we see on the maps. Countries like Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, Hungary are the same color as the Soviet Union. That indicates to us they are somehow connected. Vice versa, France, Spain, Italy, the UK, Portugal, they're the same color, which means to us that some way they're probably connected. We're going to get to that connection here, and we're going to go to slide 5. So go to slide 5. We're going to talk about NATO. This was a group the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that was formed in 1949. This was a group that was formed by the Western European world, as well as the United States and Canada, that everyone saw that the Soviet Union was looking to kind of develop a significant amount of control in Europe. And the United States and the Western Europeans sensed this threat. So, the United States, along with their Western European allies, formed a group. It was NATO. They were afraid of the potential power that the Soviet Union could have. In the years after World War II, the Soviet Union figured out how to make an atomic bomb. They were now the second country after the United States to figure out how to make the most deadliest weapon in human history. And as we've kind of seen in the past few slides, the Soviet Union is looking to continue to grow their territory and their influence. The United States is wary of this, as well as the Western Europeans, and this is why NATO forms. This is only a couple years after the war ended. Pretty much NATO is a military alliance between Western Europe and North America. It still lasts to this day. That's its flag there. And it was pretty much an agreement that did not include the Eastern European countries and did not include the Soviet Union. But it was an agreement that all these countries would work together in future wars. It never said, well, we're going to go after the Soviet Union, we're going to go after the countries that are under the Soviet Union influence. But it was saying that indirectly. Let's go to slide 6. The Warsaw Pact. This is in 1955. This is only a couple years after the NATO deal happens. The Warsaw Pact was a military alliance between the Eastern European countries and the Soviet Union. It was a reaction to NATO. Some of the countries, the flags are represented in there, but you see Poland, Romania, Hungary, Czech Republic, and who else we got? Eastern Germany in that case. We'll talk about why Germany gets split up, not today, but in the next lecture. And my first question for you at the 12:20 mark is, do you think these Eastern European countries really had a choice of whether or not they wanted to be in the Warsaw Pact? That they had to be allies with the Soviet Union? I want you to think about that, and you're going to respond to that at the end of the week. This is question number 1. So when you respond to me in your emails, put number 1, and then your answer to that response. You'll have till Friday to email to me. So do you think the Eastern European countries really had a choice to join NATO? Okay. This is your opinion. You really can't go wrong. Okay. Let's go to slide 7. Now we get another map picture, and we see countries in blue and countries in red. Okay. These are the next questions, number 2 and number 3 for the week. So who do you think makes up the countries in blue? Who do you think makes up the countries in red? This might take a little bit more thinking, but I'm going to help you out, right? So if you go back and you look at the images in slide 1, slide 2, or 3, you go back to slides 2, 3, and 4, right? And then you go to slide 7, you'll notice similar countries are colored in opposite colors. Countries that are in red, any country shaded in red is going to make up the Warsaw Pact. They're going to be behind the Iron Curtain. Countries in blue, they're going to make up NATO. They're going to be on the other side of the Iron Curtain. These are countries that are also going to be more allied to the United States. Okay. There you go. Those are your 2 answers. Make sure you have them. Okay. So that's slides 1 through 7 right there. Okay. We are actually going to go ahead and we're going to stop there. We're going to stop at 1 through 7. And we're going to pick up the next big chunk tomorrow. Don't want to overload you on the first day. So, in this video, just to recap what we went over, the World War II has ended. We're moving towards the Cold War. We're going to talk about what all that means, but first we got to understand who's at, how the boundaries are drawn, why the boundaries are drawn. We got to get to all that. To recap, there's going to be two main groups. There's going to be NATO, there's going to be the Warsaw Pact. Western Europe and the United States compromises NATO. The Soviet Union and the countries they liberated after as World War II ended, as they marched their way to Berlin, they're going to make up the Warsaw Pact. These two sides are going to be against each other for the next 40, 50 years. And even to this day, there are differences between these two sides, politically, economically, so on and so forth, that we'll discover. Make sure you answer the 3 questions that I asked you in the video, okay? And then we will pick up with more slides. We'll pick up from slide 8 starting tomorrow, and we'll go from there, okay? So stay easy, stay safe, and haters gonna hate. Tell me out.